looking at the defensive side of the ball this week, Drew, who is your defensive player of the week? Obviously, we have a bunch of candidates, a lot of good defensive player across the entire league this week. Who's your number one guy, though?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to TJ Watt. That Steelers defense is fantastic. Um, Looks like it's going to be legit. Obviously, they have more than just TJ Watt on that side, and their offense leaves a shit ton to be desired. So if they're going to continue to have any type of success, which you would assume since it's a Mike Tomlin team, they're going to win 8 or 9 games and make the playoffs. That defense is going to continue to be fantastic. And TJ Watt has taken a strong first step towards his consideration towards Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
If I don't want to steal your thunder here because there is a 1B for me, and it was really hard to distinguish between these two guys. So I'll let you go with yours, and then if you don't mention him, I'll bring him back up.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and give out honorable mentions as well, because there's a couple guys I want to go ahead and shout out as well. We've already mentioned my defensive player of the week. It's going to be Greg Rousseau. 6 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. I had a couple of guys that I was going to bring up for just some consideration. Hey, shout out. But again, Greg Rousseau putting in the work. A lot of people should know the name Greg Rousseau at this point, coming out of Miami, coming out of the U. He was talented. He's been talented, just about health and getting him to this point. I think he should be poised for a pretty decent year. And then week 1 is just kind of already proving that he's ready to go and take that step. Who is your guy you want to shout out, or a couple guys you want to shout out?
Yeah, there's a couple. It was nice to see my boy's brother, flash a little bit. Joey Bosa had a great game for the Chargers. I'm obviously a big believer in the Chargers. And then I'll leave the more obvious one to you. He was wearing blue the other night and looked like a freaking menace. Also wears number 97. But also Myles Garrett is still in this league. He's still a force to be reckoned with. And he made a rookie tackle look pretty terrible the other day, which is funny considering the Dallas Cowboys absolutely routed the Browns. So, but at least Myles Garrett is still good. The one thing is if your team's going to suck, you at least want to watch someone play. Yeah. As a Kings fan, that's called the DeMarcus Cousins syndrome. So at least the Browns have Myles Garrett they get to watch.
Yeah, watching the game Sunday night and seeing Aiden Hutchinson week in and week out last year just do the same thing. It's that nasty ass spin move. Looks like we're watching Dwight Freeney reincarnated at this point. He's in the backfield constantly. Might not have been putting up the exact right in your face stats, but he was in on almost every single play. A couple other guys I want to kind of bring up as well. Zach Bond, the linebacker from Philly, 15 tackles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. And then the corner for New Orleans, Alontae Taylor, 6 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for a hit, a pass deflection, and 3 quarterback hits. So those are obviously designed corner blitzes there. But, that Dennis Allen defense did obviously play incredibly well against the Carolina Panthers. But those are the couple guys I want to shout out. But, yeah, obvious guys obviously played their hearts out, and they played really well. Unlike the quarterbacks who kind of were lackluster this week, the defensive guys, they showed up, and they showed who they were immediately. The offensive players of the week, Drew, who is your number one guy? Because, I really only think there was like one quarterback that really could be mentioned for this spot. So we really have a bunch of position guys, running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers that could be mentioned here, which we might not get that every single week. So we should take advantage of that and try to shout these guys out. So who is your number one guy?
I'm just going to go with Saquon. I mean,
okay, yeah.
The Isaiah Likely performance, he would have had it stitched up if he was wearing white cleats, but he wasn't. Saquon, there was a lot of talk. If you guys watched Hard Knocks, where the Giants owner is like, all right, if we let this guy walk and he's still good and he goes to the Eagles, he predicted all of this so far.
Yep.
Now, is Saquon still going to be doing this in week 13? I don't know. But right. I can tell you this, he still has the zip. We saw it. He made a fantastic catch on that touchdown pass.
Yep.
And there was a lot of standout running back and wide receiver performances this week, even a tight end performance, as I just mentioned. Yep. But just Saquon, the statistics, the touchdowns, it's hard to beat. As much as I'd like to give it to my boy Jordan Mason, Saquon had a better game. So
yeah, I think when it comes to running backs, my second would have been Joe Mixon. Actually, he's not my winner this week.
Yeah, Joe my Mixon, boy Joe.
We would have
been
What
Zach Moss do this week? Oh, never mind.
But my number one guy, my number one offensive player of the week is he's a familiar name, maybe not of last year, but of the yesteryears. 14 catches, 110 yards, 2 carries, and 10 yards on top of that. Mr. Cooper Kupp, who played on Sunday night, had himself a game, especially when Puka went out, unfortunately, with an injury. He was placed on IR, which is unfortunate to see.
That's just so damn unfortunate.
It sucks. You hate to see it. But again, 14 catches, 110 yards. It looked like Cooper Kupp from a couple of years ago. Yeah, Isaiah Likely, shout him out. Obviously, 9 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. He would have had an additional, 10 yards and another touchdown if he would have just kept his foot. If he wore a size 11 instead of 13, he would have been in bounds. So super unfortunate there. But yeah, I already mentioned Joe Mixon. He was up for consideration as well. The big difference between Saquon and Joe Mixon about getting like that number one running back spot for the offensive player of the week was going to be Saquon's 3 touchdowns. That definitely makes a difference. But yeah, so Cooper Kupp gets my number one. Was there any guys that you want to shout out outside of Isaiah Likely?
Yeah, I'll go same game. Jamison Williams. He
good for him.
Injured with his knee injury, and he's got the basketball player syndrome where every time he gets tackled, it looks like he broke something, and he goes hobbling off the field, and then he's right back in there the next play doing the thing. Yep. That is a super. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown does absolutely nothing in that game. Doesn't matter because they won, but that is a super huge development for the Lions if he is just going to be a solid number 2 wide receiver, because we already know what Amon-Ra can do. We know what Laporta can do. They got a 2-headed monster at running back. Frankly, the only thing that really holds them back a little bit is their own coach's belief in them. So the Lions look like they're back. And, I think that, and then, I mean, the only other thing I'm really going to say, obviously we talked about Josh Allen off the top with 4 touchdowns, but there is a certain quarterback. I know you don't want to spend too much time on these guys, but he resides down in New Orleans, and he was had a couple of tough seasons the past couple of seasons, but Derek Carr came out and he had he only had 4 incompletions. He threw 3 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 142. And I put New Orleans on the hot seat. Yeah, I put New Orleans head coach on the hot seat. Now, I think if you saw what happened in Atlanta, I might have been spot on that one. But shout out to Derek Carr. He had a fantastic game.
Yeah, and the only other guy that I was going to bring up as well, quarterback-wise, was going to be Baker Mayfield. Shout out, had a big game, 289 yards passing. But yeah, he looked fantastic. So shout out to him, especially after getting his contract, getting paid, and then going out and getting a win week 1. So hopefully we see some good things for Baker, because I feel like most of the world at this point roots for Baker Mayfield. So we want to see good things out of him.
Did you see any of the highlights from that game?
I did. Yeah, I saw some of them.
Oh, Mike Evans had this touchdown catch where his hands were back here and the corner was on him, and then he reached his hands through the corner and caught the Mike Evans. My God, like the most underrated. I'm just going to call it now. His career ain't even over. He's going to be one of the most underrated Hall of Famers when it's all said and done, because Mike Evans shows up, he laces up his cleats, and he goes for 1,000 yards.
That's the model 1,000 yards consistency for wide receivers today.
Which is why my boy Frank Gore better make the Hall of Fame, because he got 16 seasons and 16,000 yards. Shout out to him going to the 49ers Hall of Fame last night. They said he was at his playing weight when McCaffrey was on the inactive list. I thought they might just put a uniform on Frank Gore and bring him out there. But little did you know, we had a little Jordan Mason action waiting for you. Yep. So here we go.